Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 066 of the WA Running Podcast as we record on Monday, the 17th of February, 2025. In this week's episode, we recap results that include the 1500 metres during the Strive meet on Friday night, along with the Yaberoo Trail Ultra that was on Saturday afternoon. In this week's interview, we chat to Michael Hooker, an ultra-enthusiast who's dabbled in a couple of road marathons, which includes back-to-back marathons in the space of 3 weeks back in 2023. And finally, we go through the usual warp admin before celebrating this week's Weapons of Warp. Across my screen is someone that did an amazing job facilitating the first episode of our Bunbury Running Festival training series, The Road to Bunbury Lighthouse. Chris, the podcast producer. Sure. How are you, mate?
Thanks, Simon. I'm well. It was a good experience last week, wasn't it? And a little bit of editing on the weekend. Never hurt anyone.
How's the first editing debut on the podcast?
Good. It wasn't actually. I think I mentioned previously that we had a podcast with Perich a long time ago, and I used to do all the editing back in the day with the Audacity. So it was pretty. I mean, there's definitely a bit of room for improvement, but it was good fun nonetheless. How are you, mate? How did you think that episode went?
No, really good. I think, look, I wasn't sure how it was going to go because I think, like I said during the podcast record, I was on 4 hours of sleep after editing last week's episode with the Casual Runners guys and Hado's 3G internet connection joining the call. But look, it was really good. I think, some of the surprising things that we learnt from our athletes who we're going to follow on the journey of the next couple of months is Ashley Ritson, an absolute weapon. Just low-key running UTMB while breastfeeding is probably some very, very unusual but very weapon-like behaviour. So I think Ashley's going to do well, I think, all things going well. How about yourself? Any reflections from the record and any surprises from any of the athletes?
Yeah, the steak sandwich chat was interesting.
Yep.
It's always good to hear someone with, some love for food, a bit like myself, really. But steak sandwiches aren't usually on my priority list. But usually it's ice cream. But everybody's entitled to their own tastes. But yeah, it's that. I think there was a couple of good stories there. Obviously, Hannah having struggled with a few different issues over the past few years, but kind of culminating in a very good marathon time last October was a good story, and it sounds like she's back on the mend and looking forward to seeing what she can do in the half marathon. It's definitely pretty exciting.
And finally, we get to mention David Perich's name for the first time officially on this podcast. So good to follow our good friend David as he looks to not only surpass myself in reaching sub 3 for the first time, but I think he's looking to take your PB as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'll do it. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just about a matter of by how much, So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I guess we won't. Maybe we won't address it in episode 2. But do you reckon we put a bit of pressure on Perich to see if he can beat your PB? So, look, we mentioned in episode 1 where he had 4 cartons of beer that he could have won should he run a sub 3 hour 10 minutes in his debut marathon. Do you reckon we put up that same bet if he can beat your PB?
Well, I'm not sure it'll be very enticing to him now, because he seems to have moved to a plant-based diet, and
yes, I heard.
Yeah, so he's not that beer's not plant-based, I suppose, but I think he seems to be really rigid with his diet at the moment, and maybe the beers might not hit the spot for him, but maybe there's something else we can entice him with that might play with his mind a little bit.
Yeah, no, sounds good. I mean, we've got a couple of weeks until we do the next record, so let's think about something just to entice him a little bit, maybe put a bit of pressure, and hopefully he runs a good time and not 6 seconds short like last year. Um, so look, for those that haven't had a chance to listen, we have released episode 1 of the Bunbury training series. So that was released this morning. And we'll look to do episode 2 in a couple of weeks' time, where hopefully our athletes are well into their blocks and hopefully, are a little bit more cocky and confident in terms of their hopes in the upcoming marathon and half marathon on the 13th of April. Shall we move to our own training weeks? Because I know we hadn't had a chance to talk about training weeks lately, but maybe we'll just quickly touch on our training weeks. So how was your last week, mate?
It was pretty good. I had a reasonably, probably my biggest week in a while. So I'm kind of picking up the elevation a little bit, not the elevation, the distance a little bit. So I hit 123 last week, probably having a deload week this week just to take the edge off a little bit. But feeling pretty good at around that 120 mark. I think that's 2 weeks above 120, and we'll hope to take it up over 130 next week. So we'll see how it goes. I had a couple of good sessions this week. The one I did on Friday was a 2K threshold followed by 10 by 2 minutes at, I guess, what would be VO2 effort, which I attempted that session about 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago with Smarilli one Thursday at Munger, and we only got through 8 reps that morning. It was probably about 32 degrees that morning, whereas on this Thursday, Friday just gone, it was probably, 14, 15 degrees. So
it's been beautiful. Yeah,
it has been. I did pull up a little bit sore in the calf actually after that session. So potentially I went a little bit hard, but after a bit of a massage on Saturday night, I actually felt sorer after the massage with this massage gun than I did beforehand, and so I was worried I potentially had done a bit of damage. But when I woke up in the morning Sunday, ready for my 32-kilometer run, I was ready to go. So there was no issues, but and feeling good today.
Yeah, sounds good. And so you're on 120 Ks, bumping up to 130 in a couple of weeks' time. So look, it wasn't that long ago where 120 to 130K weeks was a marathon build, but the only thing that you've got on the agenda in the short term is a half marathon at Bunbury. Why the mileage increase?
Well, I think that the gap between Bunbury and Gold Coast is 12 weeks from memory. So ideally, typically in the past, what I would have done is probably like a 15 or 16 week build. And so now having, I guess, bit of preparation before the actual Gold Coast build starts, I'm basically lifting that mileage. So I don't know where I'm going to go really in terms of the mileage for the Gold Coast build, but I think having a solid base of 120K weeks leading up to a half, and then potentially acclimatizing to that mileage, and then pushing it further for the marathon. We'll see where it goes.
Sounds good. I mean, that's one of the perks of not having a coach, right? You get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, no matter how silly it might be. Like this week, I did all my mileage in 6 days. I missed out Monday's run, nice. I ended up doing. That's why I didn't run with both you and Matt or Ma, as he's now known, on Thursday. I had gone for my midweek long run on the Wednesday, but I'd pushed the Ks out to say 2 hours, so it was like a 24, 25K run on a Wednesday, which didn't feel like backing that up with a session the following day, and so I did my recovery run instead, and then ran on the Friday.
Sounds good. Good. In terms of my week, I've been slowly increasing the mileage. I've been sitting around that 60, 70K mark over that Christmas, New Year break, and very much for most of January. So look, I'm starting to build mileage because I think my personal reflection is I respond better with more mileage. So look, I've added a bit of mayo in the number of Ks I've done in the last 2 weeks to sort of hit 81 last year, 81 last week, sorry. And 91, I can't remember this week. The key session being a long tempo session on the Saturday. Now, Athena tends to give you a personal tempo session on the Saturday, but then with the group run also on a Saturday, there is a group session at the same time. So you kind of do one or the other. So I foolishly opted for the group session workout, which is 3 by 15 minutes, which ended up being a very cooked workout. So, and I think, this week, like most weeks this year, I think with work's been pretty full on. So waking up on Saturday early and not getting much sleep this week. The tempo effort probably felt like threshold for the most part. The first 2 efforts were okay, but that third 15-minute rep just took a lot out of me. So still got it done, but I think the third rep, I needed a bit of a break in between just to break it up slightly, which, funny enough, ended up being the original tempo session workout part of the plan anyway, so it was okay.
Right.
But that was the Saturday. Sunday was my long run. I think the last 2 weeks I've been trying to get a bit of mileage on those 2 days. So the tempo sessions end up being quite a lengthy workout on the Saturday. Usually on a Sunday it's 90 minutes, but I've been pushing that slightly. So, 80, 90 Ks. I got the next 4 weeks from Tina yesterday, and it's actually looking to build into the triple digits for the first time this year, probably quite some time. I don't think I've ever hit 100k weeks with Tina so far, and I've been with her since, I'm going to say since September, so it's almost approaching 6 months now.
Wow.
So the idea being that, trying to get some 100k weeks under my belt before the marathon block officially starts at the end of April. So, so that the jump then from pre-marathon build to marathon build isn't as significant, takes a bit of pressure off. So that's part of the plan. I think I do respond better with mileage naturally. So we'll see how we go. Juggling 100k weeks with podcast life and work life and so forth. But it probably ends up being a longer Wednesday run, a longer Sunday run with longer warm-ups and cool downs, and incrementally it sort of adds up. So pretty exciting. Not much racing other than that rocky half on the 9th of March. And pace jobs really on every Sunday. So whether that's Point Walter next week through to HBF June Love, trying to keep that nice and easy.
Do you think you'll be taking any tips off of Tom Tedge in terms of like the mileage?
No, look, I don't think I'll be doing 200k weeks. You know what? Jerry Hill was interviewed yesterday at the awards night, and apparently he used to be doing upwards of 190k to 200k weeks. So,
wow.
Look, I don't think my body can handle anything over 140 at this stage. I think my body will just simply break. And look, I'm approaching my 10-year wedding anniversary in March. I don't think I'd be wanting to introduce anything more than 120 Ks, or else my marriage would be at stake, I think. So make it through to the 10-year anniversary.
For sure. I mean, that's a milestone you don't want to miss. Do you think, have you spoken to Tina about like when those Ks do get over 100, will you be doubling it at any point, or is it likely to stay at 1 run per day for a while?
Yeah, looking at the next 4 weeks where I am hitting the 100k per week mark, there is no doubles at this stage, but that's not to say that once the marathon build starts, there might be some 30 minutes in there. Cool. I think Tina's been quite good in terms of balance, work-life balance. That's really important. So it'd be interesting to see what my mileage ends up being actually once it starts in the end of April. And I think we've penciled Tina in as a future interview of this podcast. So maybe you can ask her yourself when you start asking her questions around my weaknesses and my mindset issues.
I'm looking forward to that. I've already started writing questions.
Looking forward to it. All right, so let's get straight into the results. So we'll start with Strive Program C, which is on Friday night. So for those that had Valentine's Day plans, I'm sure you took your partner out to watch a bit of athletics, including the steeplechase that was at 9:45 p.m. Maybe we'll start with just the 1500 meters. I don't think we'll cover the steeplechase. Sorry, Ellie, but maybe if you can cover the men's and women's 1500.
Yeah, for sure. So in the men's 15, we had taking out the win was Jonah Hanakiri in time of 3:57, followed by William McAlinden in 3:58, and then Jamie Dean in 4 minutes flat. In the women's, we had Leah Allen in a time of 4:36, followed by Sienna Tenardi in 4:37, and then Quinn Bendarage in 4:38. So like second apart there really for the women's, pretty close all the way through actually, and the men's for that matter.
Yeah, close race. Really great.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll move on to the Yaberoo Ultra Trail, which was on Saturday afternoon. I'm not too sure why the change, because it's always been a morning race from memory. But knowing Sean and his love of punishing his participants, that's probably the reason why it was a 3 p.m. while it was, 35 degrees or something still.
Yeah.
So pretty tough conditions there. We'll start with the 50K. In the women's, we have Petra Georgian in a time of 4 hours, 39 minutes. We'll find out if that's still the correct pronunciation. Maybe she doesn't listen, so it doesn't matter. But in second was Shelley Connor in a time of 5 hours and 5 minutes, and Olivia Lee coming third in 5 hours and 22 minutes. In the men's race, we've got ourselves Phil Gore winning at a time of 4 hours and 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming second is Ben Leeson, not too far behind. What's that? 26 seconds after, so pretty close there. And coming third is Carl Harrison in a time of 4 hours and 8 minutes. In the 25K, in the women's, we had Lauren O'Brien winning it in a time of 2 hours and 16 minutes. Jill Pope coming second in 2 hours 30, and Claudia Seke in 2 hours 32. In the men's 25K race, we've got Elliot Letchford in 1 hour and 58, Milan Kuchera in 2 hours. And coming third is Pierce 007 Bresman in a time of 2 hours and 1 minute. How about you take us through the 15K?
Yeah, in the women's, we had Ariane Houston in a time of 1:22.40, followed by Louise Boshoff in 1:43.57, and then Caroline Fenton in a time of 1:44.02. In the men's 15K, we had Liam Dardengo in a time of 1:06.04, followed by Josh Chapman 1:22.40, and then Elliot Duncan 1:24.49. We also had a 10-kilometer race for the men and the women. We had Alicia Bruce finishing in a time of 53 minutes and 50 seconds, followed by Leanne Martin in 1:02.32. Then Tammy O'Hare in a time of 1 hour 6 and 27. In the men's, we had Reddick Ditsowski in a time of 44 minutes 34 seconds, followed by Hayden McDonald, 54 minutes 51 seconds, and then Sam Kendall, 55 minutes 21 seconds. Perhaps, Simon, I believe you attended this event on Sunday night. You want to run through the WAMC Annual Awards for us?
We did, yeah. So we had the awards night Sunday night at the Marathon Club. It was the first time I've attended this event. So thank you, Carlos Aquino, for giving away his ticket. So he couldn't be there. Too busy. I don't know what he's doing in China, to be honest, but he's on holiday, and I think he might have mentioned that he's doing some, elevation type training while he's there. But hope you're enjoying your holiday, Carlos. But thank you for the ticket. Look, a great night. A lot of familiar faces. And one of my goals for attending the awards night was to finally try and understand the point system and see what it takes to win the age category awards or to be the club champion. Now, despite a slide pack that did go through the methodology behind the point system, I don't think I fully quite understand how it all works. So look, I'll trust the process, but yeah, I can't tell you. I can't give you the inside scoop as to how they work out the winners. But it was good to see Jerry Hill taking out the club champion in the men's, and our favourite friend of the show, Loz French, taking out the women's club champion award. That's Loz's 4th win in a row. So very hard to knock Loz off the Marathon Club event there. Probably the thing that I noticed from the awards night was Le Presidente Michael LePage stepping aside as the president of the Marathon Club. So after 3 years there, and Kim Vivian taking on the role. So I think Kim's the master of course distances and measuring them. So probably we'll see some very accurate presidenting from Kim there over the next couple of years while he's at the helm. In saying that, the only thing I have to report is our friend, our training partner on a Thursday morning, Matt Smurley, did win one of the age category awards in the 30 to 34 age bracket, but they spelled his name wrong. So yeah, he'll now be referred to as Mars Morelli from now on.
It rolls off the tongue though, doesn't it?
It does. So with Mars Morelli winning the 30 to 34 age bracket, do you reckon we'll finally invite him onto the podcast, or do you reckon we'll let him wait for a couple more weeks?
Yeah, I think we got to let it simmer away, keep him keen, and maybe once they spell his name right, he can get on the podcast.
Yeah, look, sorry, Ma, we'll see you this Thursday at this at Munga for the workout. Yeah. The only other result worth mentioning is the Adelaide International that was on over the weekend. So we had the 5,000 metre race. So we had James Hansen winning that in a time of 13 minutes 40, which is quite rapid. But a shout out to Dan Canella, who ran a time of 14 minutes 31. So not quite as quick as his run of 14:08 at the state champs, I think a month ago. But still a good time nonetheless. So we do have the Perth Track Classic on the 1st of March. Are you looking to head on down?
Yes, I am. You reminded me about this pre-record, so I need to sort out my tickets, get the kids down there and watch some people run very quickly around in circles.
Beautiful. Excellent. Looking forward to it. Hopefully there's some food trucks in store. So Keely, if you're listening, we look forward to the banh mi and hopefully some ice cream, right?
Yeah, well, I missed out. We missed out last time, didn't we? So, very much looking forward to that, and I'm sure my kids would appreciate the ice cream too.
All right, so let's head straight into our interview. So this week we were fortunate enough to chat to Michael Hooker. Fun fact from his partner Hayley, he has run a half marathon's worth of Rebold Hill in Bold Park, just for fun, just as a training run, which is ridiculous. Look, a great chat that we had with Michael on Friday, and here it is, our chat with Michael. All right, our guest today is a very familiar name in the WA running community who's dabbled in a little bit of everything. So from the roads with impressive marathon times such as a 2:37:44 at the 2023 Perth Running Festival, and 3 weeks after running a sub 2:42 at Sydney 3 weeks prior, through to running some incredible race events such as the 24-hour track events, through to some picturesque and challenging UTB events. A pleasure for us to chat to this weapon of an individual, Michael Farlap Hooker. Welcome to the WA Running Podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for the welcome and thanks for the invite to chat.
And we're very happy to have you, Michael. Tell us a bit about yourself, mate. What was your origin story when it came to running? How did it start and has it evolved over time?
Running, I've always been a good runner, even probably more when I was younger. As a teenager, most people, participate in school carnivals and things like that, and I was always pretty good at running. I never trained, but I always played everything that I could sport-wise, and running was something I was pretty good at. Bit of determination and just grit, and used to just turn up on the day and race, and starting obviously with track and that in carnivals and cross countries, and just sort of kept going as I got older. Had a bit of a break from running and things like that, sort of in my late teens and early 20s, and kept fit and doing other things, but then sort of returned to running probably in my late 20s, early 30s, and just started to get interested in it. And a friend of mine rang me up one day and said, come and do something crazy with me. And it wasn't the first time he's sort of said that to me on the phone or in person. And he wanted me to go and run an ultra marathon with him. And at the time, I was like, "How far's an ultra marathon?" I'm like, "I haven't even run a marathon yet." And not knowing much at all about ultras and things back then. And he wanted me to go and run a 50k ultra with him. So I was like, I think the most I'd ever run the distance then was probably about 32 k's or something. So the event was, I think, about 4 weeks later or something like that, and we ended up running 50 k's 4 weeks later. So that was my getting into ultras.
Yeah, or how did that feel, running 50 k's on, I guess, without the stepping stones of a marathon?
It felt really good, actually. I think that's sort of what really fueled my curiosity in it. Like that day he rang me, we went out, and that night, and instead of going to the gym and doing a 2-hour gym session, we went out and did a run, and he was pretty confident I'd cover the 50 k's because I pace a bit quicker than he does, and he just said, "Oh, look, you can run my pace and run with me." So he was confident I'd get through the distance, and anyway, instead of a gym session, we ran 36 k's that night. So that was, that was a PB distance for me, and just hitting the 50 k's in that event was just like, wow, I've just run 50 k's. So it's like, what else can I do? And curiosity got from there, and I just kept going longer and longer and seeing how far I could go.
So we've stalked your Strava in the lead up to this interview, and you've posted some pretty impressive times for what I think we would consider the short stuff for you. So, a 16:19 at a Burswood Park run, a 33:40 in a 10k time trial, and a 1:16 at Busso back in sort of that 2020, 2021 period. Talk us through that period of time. So you were telling us that you really got straight into ultras from day one. Talk to us about that period of time, and what did training look like then, and what were your goals at the time?
Training back then was very sporadic. I was quite a lazy trainer, as in I would, I guess a bit like what I was like at school, I would just play everything and do anything. So it was without a plan, it was turn up and do it. So I sort of did that. But I was training probably 2 or 3 times a week, running wise, as well as gymming and stuff back then. I was doing CrossFit and stuff, so a bit different. But 2021 and that, when I was doing those times you mentioned, I was basically back into running full time. That was sort of what I was doing. In 2017, I tried to run my first 100 miler, and DNF'd 7.5 k's from the finish. That was at Feral Pig, and the reason why I DNF'd there was because I'd got lost 5 times during the day and off track, and I basically PB'd and pushed myself to my limit at the time. But I had back surgery about 4 months later, and then had a bit of time off running and stuff like that. And then, worked my way back to sort of full fitness in 2019. And then between 2019 and 2021, when I was hitting those times that you start talking about on Strava, I've been doing a lot more training. I took a lot more seriously, I guess. I was training just about every day, running just about every day, and just really getting into it. I had a real fire in my belly after that DNF to get back and finish that race and do it again. And 2020 was a huge year for me. I think I won just about every event that I raced in that year except for one. It was just everything I was doing was working. I just had a really good year. Every event I went into, I just had a goal set to do myself. I wasn't necessarily setting out to win the events. I just set out to, achieve a goal that I'd set myself. And, just everything just sort of seemed to go really well. But yeah, so the quick marathon, 5K park run times and things like that, I never really liked doing interval sessions for speed and things like that. I'd much prefer running up and down hills. That's just me. Crazy, I know. But I was coached during that time as well for a period of time, and that did help me wonders. That gave me a really good insight of what works for me and what doesn't work for me, what I enjoy doing and what I don't enjoy doing. And at the end of the day, when you want to achieve something, you've got to do the work to be able to achieve it, and you don't always enjoy the work. But I also was still having a lot of issues with little relapses with my back and things like that from my surgery. Sure. So for me, it was finding what works for my body. And I just found that, I couldn't do the interval sessions all the time because my back would flare up and hurt. But if I went and did hill sessions and repeats on hills, and different things like that, or more trails rather than hard road running. I think with time as well also, my back got stronger and going to the gym and doing things like that. So the times, I think, are just a reflection of the hard work I put in all round. And a sheer determination, I guess, as well. I'm a bit, I'll say stubborn is the wrong word, but determined I like to use is a bit more of a positive swing on it, but that's sort of how I've been managed to do those sort of times.
And you touched on CrossFit there. So is that something you still do, or have you kind of dropped that now that you're kind of pushing the distance a lot further?
No, I stopped doing the CrossFit probably. I would say it was around 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. But I go to the gym now. I do strength sessions. I do weights and strength stuff at home as well. But now I just go to the gym or do it at home. So not so much CrossFit, but more just body weights or heavy weights and things like that to just retain muscle, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's an important part of training that a lot of people tend to skip, the strength training, and they tend to, if they've got an option between going to the gym or going for a run, they tend to pick the run, right? So it takes a lot of dedication to stay in the gym for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And like I've had a few injuries and a couple of pretty good ones. So I've had a couple of I have a stress fracture in my femur. I've had a stress reaction in my left heel, things like that. So when those sort of things happen, you really realise how important the strength and I guess the balance is. So I've always felt my best and fittest in my whole body when I've come back from injury. So when I've been in the gym, when I've been doing different training, not just getting up every day and going for a run, that's when I felt my best. When I'm a bit more consistent all round, that's when I find I'm my best. I mean, you can go out and run, 100-mile weeks for consecutive weeks in a row and all that sort of stuff, and that's great, but you do that long enough and your body breaks down. You burn all your muscle away. You burn, everything sort of depletes. So you got to have those times where you sort of get back in the gym and you rebuild a bit of muscle, rebuild a bit of strength, get your tendons and ligaments and knees and all that sort of thing mobile. And that's something I've been focusing on probably in the last 12, 18 months, probably last 12 months, definitely a lot more. My partner's pretty good with that as well because she knows a fair bit about that more than I do. So she's always on to me. She's always saying, you need to, I'll tell her I've got a niggle and she'll go and roll out. And I'm like, I hate rolling out. But yeah, so I've got Haley to help me with that a bit, so it's good.
She does that to me at work as well. She tells me what to do.
Yeah, she's very good at that.
That's great. Perhaps you can talk us through like 2023 and running Sydney and then Perth kind of back to back, and PBing in the Perth race after having run a 2:41.49 in Sydney, which is not a flat course. And from memory, 2023 was that year where it was very warm as well. So perhaps you could talk us through, I guess, the lead up to those two races, and were both of them A races, or how did you approach them so close together?
Yeah, so I'll just go back a little bit before that. Is when I was being coached, I sort of got told that everyone will remember you, or what you'll be known by is your marathon and your half marathon time. And being more of an ultra runner, I sort of snickered at that. But I'd never broken a sub-3 marathon at that point. And my first marathon was 2005, after I'd run the 50k ultra, which was City to Surf, and I did that in 3:06. So I was like, tick, done the marathon. I don't need to do another marathon. I'm now doing ultras, and that's what I love doing. But I'd run marathon training sessions, so I got to a point with my training where a marathon was just a training session, with the distances I started to cover. So it wasn't anything for me to go and pump out a marathon. And I would do sub-3 marathons in training and all sorts of things, but I just had never done one officially. And then I tried to do one, I think it was in, might have been 2021 at the Perth, and I think it was that year. And I was chasing just the sub-3. I didn't care what time, I just wanted sub-3. And I went out probably too hard and I blew up. And I came in and I struggled to get to the finish. I was just like, I'll just finish. And it turned out I missed out by 30 seconds. I did 3 hours and 30 seconds. So I was pretty devastated. I was happy to finish, but I was pretty devastated. And I was like, I've still got to tick that box. I've got to go sub-3. So anyway, during COVID, a friend Adam organised a marathon around Herdsman Lake. He invited a bunch of people to do it. So I did that as a training run. And my coach at the time, he paced me for the first bit of it, and I ended up running 2:40 around Herdies. So that was 6 laps of Herdies, and I was like, well, I've done a sub-3. It's not an official, but I've done it. I knew I could do it. So it was there. So then, I just put it off because I got back into my ultras and didn't think much about it. But then I had a gap in between two big events in 2023. So in 2023, in the beginning of the year, what did I do in the beginning of the year? I think it was, I can't remember what I did in the beginning. So I had an event at the beginning of the year, and then I was aiming for an event in Canberra to qualify for the Australian team. So that was the Track Invitational 24-hour. And I was trying to just do some long events leading into it, just to basically get some long events into me, because I was then, again, coming back from injury with that. So basically the two marathons I used as an opportunity to fill in gaps and hit that goal of sub-3. So I went to Sydney with a couple of friends and basically was looking to do a sub-3, knowing I could do 2:40, and I did pretty specific training leading into the marathon. I was in really good shape, feeling really good. The body was good, everything was good. So I was like going over there pretty confident. And obviously you never know what's going to happen on race day and all that sort of thing. But I planned it all out, planned my nutrition with the nutritionist I was using at the time, and Had a really good run. It was hot on the way over. People were talking. I heard, other runners that were going over there saying they're going to adjust their plan, they're going to adjust their goal because of the heat, and the course is quite undulated, so they were all looking at altering their goals. And I'm a bit, again, determined or ambitious in my goals and things, so I was like, I'm not going to change my plan, I'll just stick to my plan. I've got a plan, I'll pace according to my plan, and we'll see how it goes. And I got into it, and halfway through the event, I was feeling good. I was halfway. I passed a friend of mine who's from Sydney over there. She was running. She was in the elite group, and she was in front of me for the whole first half. But I caught up to her halfway, and she was starting to struggle a bit. But I was feeling really good, so I just sort of pushed on. Everything was going well. My pacing was good. I think I negative split that marathon.
Wow.
And finished with the 2:41, and I was stoked. The only thing that was I felt a bit empty because I was over there and there was no one there at the end. There was a few people that obviously other runners and stuff that I knew, but not really anyone. So, you sort of at the end of most events, you're sort of really stoked, and you got a support crew, and everyone's happy for you, or you got some people around, but it was like you crossed the finish line, and it was like crickets, and it was like okay. The first thing I did was jumped on the phone and messaged and talked to Hayley about it, obviously, and so that was the plan, was to go there and do sub 3, and then the plan was to come back here to Perth 3 weeks later, knowing it was a flatter course, knowing that the start time was an hour earlier, so it should have been a bit cooler, hoping that the day wasn't too hot, and the goal was to, while I'm in really good form, as long as I pulled up well from Sydney, to then try and PB here in Perth. And managed to do that, managed to get out and run it really well. I was a bit nervous about it because of the previous Perth marathon that I blew up in, but just again stuck to my game. I had really good support on course with Hayley and a few other friends meeting me at different aid stations to fuel me, which really helped. Actually had Mitch Crook, really good mate of mine. He was running around on a bike, going from aid station to aid station, meeting me and talking to me and encouraging me and just spurring me on. And just managed to have a good race, got the result, and now that marathon bet is definitely made and set. So getting so close to 2:30, I did sort of half think about maybe 2:30, but I'm very happy with the 2:37.
And that race, did you have, was it a solo run, or did you have a pack that sort of kept you going for
I guess I was very cautious of pacing myself and doing my own race, because that's what happened to me when I blew up. Is I stayed I was in the top 10, towards the back of the top 10, but I was in the top 10 for the first sort of 10Ks of the one I blew up in, and I was just going a little bit too quick for what I really wanted to sit on, but I was feeling good, and that was probably just the nostalgia of the event, and you get caught up in it. But I knew I couldn't sustain that pace for the whole time, so I pulled back deliberately in that one, and even though I'd pulled back, I'd burnt too much candle. So I got to 18, 19 Ks, and just that was the end of me. I struggled to hold 4:30s after that to get to the end for 3 hours 30. But I was very conscious of that here in Perth and in Sydney. But here in Perth, I had a few people around me, but not really a pack. And I actually find I run better when I'm on my own anyway. You sort of have, when you hear footsteps all around you and behind you, especially for me, I'm always wondering, are they hanging on to me, or are they just sitting behind me waiting? So I like to be the chaser. I like to chase. I don't like people sitting behind me. It doesn't bother me all the time, but it's just one of those things you sort of think, am I keeping them going, or are they just sitting waiting? And it's like, so there wasn't that
Like a
many
distraction.
people. Yeah, it's something else as well. And so yeah, I just stuck to my game, and there wasn't that many people around me. There was a few, but then especially towards the end, like from what I've experienced in marathons, and I think I've only run 4 or 5 now, and that's enough. But people don't always negative split the marathons, and I like to. That's how I sort of train a bit progressive in a lot of my runs, and I like to finish strong. So I know, and I back myself every other day to negative split or outrun people towards the end of a race, because that's how I train, and that's my instinctive, determination. So I was passing people pretty smoothly and pretty easily towards the end. I remember going down Riverside Drive, heading back towards the stadium for that one, and I remember I think I was doing sort of sub 4s at that time.
Nice.
We were in the last few Ks, so I was trying to aim for sub 4s at that time, and I think I passed Macca from double, and he looked to me like he was in the hurt locker, and I was feeling good because I was like, he's a great runner, and I'm passing him feeling pretty good. I'm hurting, running quick and that far into the race, but I'm doing well, and it was pretty much on my own. But I like having that rabbit in front of me to chase down. So you pass someone, even if they're doing a different distance of you than you are, you still feel good that you're passing someone else. So that's sort of I like being the greyhound chasing the rabbit.
Yeah. Sounds like Chris. Chris has got a very good kick at the end, so he tends to negative split it. Whilst meanwhile, I tend to blow up catastrophically. So you were saying earlier that your love of ultras is really from day one, and although you've done some of the road stuff, you've always gravitated towards the ultras. How do you stay motivated for those type of events? Is it the different challenge? Is it because it's always something different, or like what keeps you in the ultra game for so long?
Yeah, I think just the love of for me, just being out on the trail and running. I love trails. I love point-to-point races. I think ever since that first ultra 100 miler that I did at Ferrell in 2017. I love being out on the trail. I love being out in nature. I don't run with earphones or music or anything like that. I just run and listen to the birds and listen to the trees and everything that's going on. And that for me, that's just my little haven. I love that, and I think since the DNF there, I've just loved it because after my back surgery and I got back out training, I was the feral pigs ran on the Biderman track, and my determination to get back and actually finish that 100 miler and complete it and get my redemption was pretty good. Like I had a real fire in my belly. And I just love that end-to-end stuff. So I did a lot of my training leading on to that because I got lost as well 5 times on the day and not knowing the course very well. I went out and I trained and covered every inch of that course leading into the second attempt of that course. And I just love it. I just love nature. I love getting out there. I love the challenge of pushing yourself and doing different distances. And every race is different too. So every event's different. So it's always a new challenge. And even if you redo an event, like Feral, like I've done Feral Peak 3 times now, or entered it 3 times. I've finished it twice. Every time it's different because the day might be different, the weather might be different. There could have been a fire go through, so then the trail's all different. Things are always changing. But I think the point-to-point, end-to-end stuff's where I like it because you're getting from here to there, and you feel like you're on a quest or something like that. It's like you're on a mission. Whereas, I've done other events like my first ultra, which was at Lark Hill, and it's a 2.5K course, and you're just doing loops, and although the time of day changes and you get the nostalgia of the sun coming up and that sort of thing, and you're running during the night, different things with lights, you're doing lap after lap, like it's hard work doing that. It's mentally, it's hard, and I prefer end-to-end stuff, which is kind of contradictory to other events I've done. I've done other track events and things where you run around a 400-meter track for 24 hours, and so it sounds silly. It's like, well, you like running end-to-end, doing a long distance like that, but you're also happy to run around a 400-meter track. But I think for me, it's the part of the mental thing as well. It's like I get that nostalgia of being out on the trail, just being out in nature, just enjoying it, having the challenge of running up hills and down hills and the rough terrain. And I love technical trail, so anything with rocks and technical is hard, but I love it. So it's the challenge, I think. And I think, for me, it's the challenge you always set yourself. And that's the thing, I think, with the 24-hour tracks and things. It's the challenge. Can you stick to this challenge, and can you beat it? And, that's sort of where I'm fueled by.
Yeah, I mean, you more or less answered our next question, I reckon, Michael. We were going to ask you about those track races and the backyard ultras, but it sounds like the point-to-point stuff is where it's at for you. You've obviously, had some great races, recently, but there's also been some tougher things like UTMB COSI earlier in the year or last year. So, how is it that you kind of approach the next race after you kind of maybe have a hard one or a challenge, and how do you come back from that?
Yeah, I think you got to have some setbacks to get better. I think it's the old cliche of like football. You got to lose a grand final or win one, but I think it's just experience. I think if you've got a love for something, it's not always going to be easy, and it's never all going to go well. So you learn more from the ones that don't go well than the ones you do go well. And I've had. I mean, every event's hard. Every event has ups and downs through it. You struggle through it. I don't think I've ever done an event where I can go, everything went perfect and it was good. You still feel crap sometimes. You got to dig yourself out and remind yourself why you're there and why you want to do it. But I think it's just doing the events like the trails and knowing why you want to do it, and just going through the motions. Big Kev always said to me, there'll be ups and downs, and you just got to keep going, and it'll change. It's that old cliche of this too shall pass, and it does. You just got to stay in it. And I think ultras are a lot more mental than they are physical. You've got to obviously physically be able to do it and put your body through it, but you've also got to push yourself mentally. And I think that's the hardest part, is staying in the game mentally, whether it's your preparation, your lead up and everything you're doing, or even sticking to a plan during the races. And that's something I think I've, again, talking to Hayley, who helps me out a lot with things, is sticking to a plan instead of just sort of having a plan and then throwing it out the window once you get to that start line. You've got to actually plan these things and to do it to get the results that you want to get. So I've been heading to a few UTMB events and things like that, because that's where I want to go. I'd love to get over to Europe and run over there for a little bit, which is why I've been dabbling over overseas closer to home, going over to Tarawera and doing Kosciuszko and doing those sort of events, because that's what I love doing. But saying that, I also I'm very conscious of my age and my body isn't getting any younger. So, I very happy to try and embrace what I can do when I can, where I'm at now.
Of course. So what is your sweet spot of a distance in the ultras? Is there one where you're like, yeah, I will do very well in this?
There is and there isn't.
Yep.
I love anything bigger than 50 Ks. For me, if you said to me what distance is your perfect and ideal distance or your favourite, I would say the 100 miler. Only because they're so hard. It doesn't matter how much you train from. There is the ups and downs, and it is a challenge to get through the whole distance. With all the different obstacles, of not just the course and that sort of thing, but obviously the different time of day, the start time of the race. Just there's so much to it, and also you're relying on other people generally to help you out in it as well. So there's so much. It's just such a busy vibe and going on, but I just think the 100-mile distance is a good challenge, and it's it's one of my favourites. I haven't perfected it, to be honest. I've had a few really good 100-milers that have, when you look at my results and on paper, they look like I've had an absolutely amazing race. But every single one of them was hard. Every single one of them had an opportunity for me to pull out or back off and not chase the result that I ended up getting, and that sort of thing. So it's that mental side of things that you really got to dig deep on. And you rely on not just your own preparation and things you've done, but your crew and other people on the trail, on the course. I've done one 200 miler and I can't wait to do another one. So that's a bit of fire in the belly, that one too, because that one didn't go well, even though it was my first one. And I know I can do it a lot better than what I did. So, I want to go longer, and I've done last man standing events and things like that where I've done really long distances. So I know I can go longer than what I have done already, and that's something that I really do want to push probably a little bit later, not right now. Just got some other things that I'm trying to do at the moment while I'm young enough, I guess you could say. So I am getting older, but while the body's still feeling good, I've got goals and I've got events that I'd like to get done. And I'll probably chase the distance in races or events after I've done a few of these other goals that I'd like to tick off.
So in short, the harder the better.
The harder and the longer, I guess. Yeah.
No, sounds good. So Chris and I have very little to no experience when it comes to ultras. However, we do know that you ultra runners love your nutrition and indulging in good foods while you're out there on the trails or doing the long distances. What's your go-to nutrition plan heading into these types of races? Because surely it can't be 50 Bix energy gels.
Yeah, no, I don't know that anyone could have 50 gels. Look, Bix has been good. Vlad's been really good for me. He's supported my running enormously. Thanks to Bix. I'll give him a plug there. But I actually, to be honest, I don't like, or I haven't liked gels. I went off gels. I used to have gels and, the gel blocks and different things like that in my early days of running, and I just really went off them. I was like, I think it was probably a conversation that, again, Big Kev said once about ultras that, it's just a long walk with a picnic stop every, now and then, and just people
Classic.
eating and just being in the community, seeing people at ultras and they just eat all sorts of food at aid stations, and I'm just like, oh, this is okay. Yeah, I like eating food, so let's just eat food instead of gels and stuff. And I think with your quick races, your shorter distances, then gels and all that have a purpose. And admittedly, I've tried a bit of both, of just gels and stuff, and then only food and hardly any gels. For shorter distances, I've done just liquids and gels, probably half marathon. For everything ultra-wise, generally I've done whole foods. Don't take that many gels. In Australind, in last month when I did the 100 Ks there, I did a bit of a nutrition experiment and just did liquids and gels there. So I used Bix there, and that actually went really well. But that's for 100 Ks. I think for 100 Ks I think it was just under 7.5 hours, you can probably stomach that. And I don't know how you would do it for 24 hours. So it's not something I'm about to experiment with. But saying that, I will be using the Bix gels and stuff a bit more because, to be honest, and I'm not just saying this because of Vlad, but they're very, very good. I don't stomach gels, and I've tried quite a few that well. And I'm actually, there's only 2 brands that I've sort of used, but that actually work, that I find work for me anyway, because everyone's different, obviously. But no, generally, if I'm doing ultras, it's eat anything. But it's things like if I'm doing, it depends on the event again, I guess. But anything from white bread sandwiches to noodles to stroop waffles to snakes and lollies, chocolate. Have a bit of caffeine every now and then as well. But yeah, all sorts. There's so much you can eat, but it's about what your stomach can handle, and obviously training your stomach to be able to handle as well, because that's something else I have struggled with a lot, is my nutrition. And I think for me, it's balancing and getting the pace right to a point where my stomach can still operate and eat the food and process the food, and I can still run at the pace I want to run at. And that's quite, for me, it's a fine line. If I run too quick, then my stomach goes on me and I can't stomach it, and then the race falls apart a bit because you lose energy, you lose your legs, and I've had that in a few events. When I did the 200 miler, I finished that event in, I think it was 57 hours, and I was sick for about 38 hours out of 57. But there was a lot of time in that race where I was like, this is too hard, my stomach doesn't want to work, I might as well just stop. But yeah, if, like BK says, if you keep going, if you persevere, if you can get through that little down, then there'll be an up, and there always is, but it's keep digging yourself out of that hole. And yeah, so yeah, you're right about the food. Anything sort of goes, but it's individual. It's very personalised. What works for someone else doesn't always work for you. I've had things like avocado and ham sandwiches, like during the race.
Nice.
Yeah, just like I said, hot noodles, honey sandwiches, jam sandwiches, all sorts of different things. So it's all about training yourself and figuring out what your body can handle, and then sticking to a good pace so your stomach still works. Because when you're pushing your body to the extreme, your body will go into protection mode, and your stomach's the first thing that your body will stop basically turning on and trying to operate to survive. So if you're pushing your body too hard, then your stomach will shut down. So just to keep everything else working. So it's definitely a balance and a hard thing to try and get right. So I don't think you can ever say I've got it and I've hit I've got the winning formula. I think that you can get things right, but you've got to get other things right to make it all work.
And you touched on Hayley earlier being, your partner, but also crewing for you at all of these races. How important is it to have someone like Hayley when you're in the hurt locker, when you are sick for 30 hours of a 57-hour race,
Yeah, look, I would say just as important as it is as to all your training that you do leading into the event. Hayley's been phenomenal for me during races. One of the track events I did last year, I was projectile vomiting for 4 or 5 hours or something during that race, and she was determined to just get me on track, to keep me going around that track, no matter how I was feeling, no matter what I was going through, and just having the support, having someone that understands you, someone who understands the race and your goals, and I mean, Hayley's run a few ultras herself, and she's been in competitive sport for many, many years, playing netball for many years and things like that. So she knows, she has that drive as well to win and drive to achieve goals. And having someone like her in my corner is, astronomical. You can't beat support like that. And it really can come down to make or break. So in that event where I was sick around the track, I managed to finish the 24 hours despite being so sick. I didn't hit my goal distance. I didn't, for me, I didn't have a great race. Like when you look at the result, I didn't feel like it was a great race. But going through what I went through is similar to my 200 miler. Like you just go, well, look what you went through and you still finished it. So, and I've had other things when I went to New Zealand at Tarawera. That was a hard race for me. On paper, it was a great result. I came 12th. I think it was 12th or 11th. And from my first ultra outside of WA, point-to-point ultra outside of WA, it was a fantastic result, and a lot of learnings out of that. But there was a point in that race where I was like cooked. I was, just absolutely gone. I was cramping. I literally was gone, and Hayley just patched me up, and I spent a bit of time at the aid station there for a bit, and she kicked me out and kept going, and I got to the end. So, but just and knowing you got that support during the race is it also a big thing, because it's not easy. I mean, you give the support, whether it's your partner or it's a friend or whoever it might be, like they've got to be up and on game, so you can be on game. And if for Hayley, she's up 24 hours. If I'm doing a 24-hour race, like she's not sleeping in between. She's just up, and it's hard for her. I mean, she's got to stay awake. I'm running, I'm moving. She's got to keep herself awake. She's got to be on game. For me, knowing what my plan is, knowing what nutrition I need, looking out for me, making sure I feel okay, or if something goes wrong, how to fix it and problem solve, and then she's got to eat, and she's got to go to the toilet and bathroom and all that sort of stuff herself. And so, look, support is crucial, and it's definitely easier for us runners with a solid support. So, definitely need it.
Yeah, good answer as well. Hear that, Hayley? Speaking of Hayley, I we did mention probably at a previous episode when you did win the True Blue Ultra that Hayley did run or walk a half marathon while you were doing the 100K. So yeah, it goes to prove that yes, she does stay awake the whole night crewing for you as well. Talk to us about that race actually. So that was your most recent race not too long ago, where you broke the course record there in under 7 hours and 30 minutes. What was the game plan coming into that race, and did everything go to plan?
So I actually wasn't planning to do that run.
Okay.
Hayley was supposed to be running it, and he had a deferred entry from the year before, and was injured last year and couldn't do it. And she was injured again this year, so she couldn't do it this year. So I just sort of said to her, look, if you're not going to do it, maybe I'll do it, and I'll do it as a long training run leading into my next event. And I was like, well, I haven't really prepared for it that well because I wasn't planning on doing it. So probably about after Kosciuszko, I had a couple of down weeks of just, just light Ks and things like that to recover. And then, got back into it knowing I was going to do this 100K run, and just sort of did what I had to do physically and training-wise to know, I was in a good position to do the 100K distance. And I've done that event 4 years ago. I think it was 2020 I did it, or I think it was 2020. And I started that year off with that race, and I broke the course record on that race, albeit by maybe 3 or 4 minutes or something, but I think it was 7:27 was the course record when I beat it that year. And being ambitious and things with my goals, 4 years older, and thinking, well, let's see if I can give the record a nudge. And I went out with a pretty solid plan. Again, I said I was going to trial different nutrition, and I did that, and it really did go well. The only thing I felt I didn't have was a real kick at the end, and I sort of put that down to my training, probably not being focused specifically on that event for a period of time leading into it. And just managed to pit my old record, and I think I beat it by less than a minute or something. But it was a good run. It was a good run for me pacing wise. I paced quite well for the whole 100Ks. I knew I had to do basically about a 4:25, 4:26 average to beat the record, and I wasn't quite sure how I'd go with that over the long haul, but managed to hang on and squeeze it out. I actually didn't know if I'd broken it when I finished. I knew I'd won the event when I crossed the line, but I wasn't sure because I was chasing the clock, and I wasn't 100% sure. But Chris Lark and Ron confirmed it about a minute or so after I finished that, I was 6:26:30, I think it was. So managed to get the record. So it's good.
Yeah. So you mentioned this was kind of like an interim or like a surprise race for you, leading up to your next challenge. What is that next big challenge, Michael? Are you able to share it with us, or are you keeping it under wraps?
No, I'll share it with you. I'm actually, after saying I love point to points and that's where I like to be and everything, I'm actually heading back to the track. I'm heading to Canberra next month to run in the Sir Chimnoy 24-hour track race over there. I'm going over there to see how I go at the track again. I've raced at that track. I think this will be my third time. Sort of familiar with the track now. It's a different event than the ones I've done previously, but I had one really good result in my first visit there, and the second one was a good result because of what I was able to achieve with all my projectile vomiting that was happening. Going over there for a third time's it's going to be good. I'm really sort of excited and looking forward to it because I've had one really good result over there where I qualified for the Australian team, 24-hour team, and didn't have a great result on paper in the second one when I was representing Australia there in the the Asia Oceania Championships. But good result as in got through the race, jumped all the hurdles that were thrown in front of me. Didn't achieve the distance and goal and all that sort of thing that I sort of wanted, but getting through the event and having Haley kick me out and not let me sit down for too long and just continue for the whole 24 hours was a big challenge and a big mental box to tick, I guess, to know that, if I do another one that, just to keep going and just keep moving and just, you can get through it and ride the ups and downs. So, yeah, heading out over to Canberra to run around a track for 400 metre track for 24 hours.
That sounds incredible. And here I am bitching about 25 laps for a 10,000 metre race.
Oh, that's a horrible distance to run on the track, though, I reckon.
Yeah.
I've done one of those and I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, fair enough. And so finally, Chris and I are doing Transcend later this year in a team event, and I think you've done Transcend before. So we're a bit worried. We're not really one of a trail type of runner, and particularly me, I'm quite allergic to vert and just any form of trails. Any tips on how we condition ourselves for an event like Transcend? Is it simply just going up and down Rebold Hill a million times?
Well, that's something I'd do, but you can do that if you want. Might not help you with the trails, though, because it's Rebold Hill's obviously bitumen. But, yeah, you can go and run a marathon on Rebold Hill. I've done that before. I don't know how many.
Yep, Haley's told me that, yep.
Again, my love of hills. My love of the challenge of the climb. But Transcend's an awesome event. Shane's got a really good thing going on there. That's a fantastic event. I've done it as a team, as a duo with Mitch in the inaugural year. And I've also run it solo, but I ran it solo as a training run just as a comeback from injury. I ran that with another friend of mine just to literally cover the distance and the vert on the comeback trail from injury. So, look, mate, your injury, the vert is all you can do. All you can do is get out there and climb hills, run hills. I'd recommend going out to Bells Rapids out there and wherever it is out that way and go and climb. There's a segment out there called Marinos, which you actually come down in the race in Transcend, but I'd go run a few laps up and down of that and just do a lot of vert, do a lot of the trail course out there. I did leading into Kosciuszko. I actually did repeats of Marinos, and that was pretty tough. I did 10 repeats of that, and that was pretty tough work. And that's over 200 meters of vert in. I think it's about a K, 1.3K.
Jesus Christ.
So go and do that a few times. You'll be right. But for me, everyone's different. But if you're preparing for vert, you've just got to do vert. You've just got to, for me,
of course,
get out, climb stairs, go. You've been in the city here, go and climb Mount Street and then Jacob's Ladder. There's a lot of steps. Yeah. There's a lot of steps in Transcend going through the wildlife park and out there. So, if being it's not trail, I know, but anything vert, go and climb Mount Street and Jacob's Ladder, go down and do the Kokoda, get out to Bold Park and just run Bold Park laps. That's sort of trail. Just get out there and run the hills.
Okay.
Do the work.
yeah, definitely. Michael, it was an absolute pleasure chatting to you, mate, about your origin story, but also your drive and motivation. I think Chris and I will probably agree after the fact that that's pretty motivating for us as probably wusses in comparison to your drive and determination. So, look, absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. Michael Hooker, thanks for joining us on the WA Running Podcast.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That was our interview with Michael Hooker. How'd you find that, Chris?
Yeah, it was pretty insightful, actually. I didn't know what to expect, having never met Michael before, but having heard his name on the results frequently and some amazing races that he's completed over the last 12 months since I've really been started following this podcast. It's great to finally have a chat to him and hear about his kind of the way he goes about preparing for races and his mentality and all of those things. It's it goes to show that sometimes when you do have some failures or not so good races, those are sometimes the best opportunities to learn. So it seems like he takes a lot away from some of those results and pushes it into his next race, which turns out bigger and better.
And look, it was a special shout out to Haley, his partner, being, I guess, a good source of, I guess, motivation, but also a good support base in terms of someone that crews for a lot of his races. I don't know if you paid attention, but he did mention Big Kev a lot, and probably more so than Haley. So I feel like Michael was just thinking about Big Kev constantly throughout that interview. So
aren't we all?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So look, thank you, Mike, for taking the time to chat to us this week, and hopefully the listeners found that very insightful as well. Shall we move to upcoming events, Chris?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Perth Track Classics on the 1st of March. There's early tickets out now, so go over and snap those up while you can. We've got the Perth Trail Summer Series Swiss Murdy, which I believe is the final event of the Perth Trail Summer Series. That's on this Sunday, the 23rd of February, but at Mundy Regional Park. There's of the Johnny Walker labels, we've got the 6.1 green course, we've got the blue course at 9.1 Ks, and then the black course at 15.1 Ks. Also this Sunday, we've got the Point Walter run. There's a 16 and a 5K option there. That's hosted by the WA Marathon Club. On the Saturday, the 1st of March, so same day as the Track Classic, we've got the Running Works Lark Hill Ultra. That's a 3-kilometre loop down near Rockingham, like Lark Hill Sports Complex. There's distances ranging from 3 kilometres right through to 100 kilometres. Effectively, you're going to be running. If you're doing 100 kilometres, you're running 3K loops. You're looking at what are we talking? My maths is not good. 33 laps.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a long way. But from all accounts, it's supposed to be a bit of a party. It starts in the evening, it starts in the longest ones start in the morning, but they run through to the evening. So those shorter distances start in the twilight, which sounds like lots of fun. We've got, as we mentioned in our last episode, Chris from Running Works has offered our listeners a $50 discount using the code WARP, and a free pair of Steigen socks for the first 15 users of that code from memory. Correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, but I don't want to be offering...
It's either 15 or 10. I'm not too sure.
I'm sure I just gave away 5 more pairs of socks. So
yep.
I'm sure Chris appreciates that. Speaking of Chris, we've got the Canning River Running Works Festival on the 16th of March. There's a 10K, a half marathon and marathon there. That's a relatively shady course, kind of at the back of Thornley Way. It's out and back for the 10K, and then you've got 4 out and backs for the marathon there.
Shady because of the trees, or shady because of the area?
Shady because of the trees, of course.
Okay.
I would never say a bad word by anyone that lives out that way. Darlington Half Marathon, hosted by the Marathon Club. That's on the 16th of March as well. We've got 8 kilometre there and a 21K. I believe the half marathon is effectively a 200 metre climb in the first half, and then you jump back down the Darlington Heritage Trail there on the way back. So usually a slow first half, but a pretty quick second half. I haven't done it myself, Simon, but have you completed the Darlington half before?
I have used Darlington as a bit of a tune-up race for Bunbury, so it's usually scheduled a month prior, so it's usually a good... Actually, I don't think it's a good indicator of fitness, but I do tend to do Darlington for that. And I think Ashley, one of our athletes, is planning on doing Darlington prior to Bunbury. So, I think a lot of people worry about whether or not you need trail shoes for Darlington, but I feel like you can get away with just normal running shoes.
Definitely, but I wouldn't be wearing your $700 Pro Evo ones on the trails if you can avoid it.
If you can avoid it, yep, agree.
Let's get into the weapons of warp. There's a few. We've got a big list this week, guys, so please bear with us. I'll start with Shannon Beattie from Double and the Casual Runners Appreciation Podcast. So we spoke to them last Monday night, and then on their episode on Friday, Shannon's announced that she's signed up for the marathon at Gold Coast, which is a massive undertaking, and to be honest, completely surprised given how much nonsense Shannon had thrown at that distance for the last few months over the podcast. But maybe our influence was too great. Simon, what do you reckon?
I think, I think the appearance on the WA Running Podcast got to her head a little bit, and Tuesday morning, tried to weasel her way into a Gold Coast marathon ticket, which she was successful in. So it'd be interesting. We do currently have a Bunbury training series. We are thinking about future training series. Do we do a Gold Coast one, and do we have Shannon on as an athlete?
I'd love to see it. I think the if it's anything like what the Busso Bay Run is supposed to be like, then potentially 42 beers for 42 kilometres afterwards will mean that the after party at Gold Coast is going to be absolutely lit.
Absolutely. So that's the challenge, Shannon. If you want to be on the training series for Gold Coast, 42 beers, 42 Ks, the challenge is on. We'll see how we go. We've got another nomination for a Weapon of Warp where someone who we won't name logged their drive to the boat ramp and subsequent trip to Roddo to check their crayopots, logging in a total of 25 Ks over 32 hours. Now, it's possible that the crayopots are a cover for an ongoing drug trade deal in Catherine Bay or nearby, but very suspicious activity by that individual, and thank you for a friend of the show who submitted that nomination. Who else do we have?
We've got James Payne, formerly from Perth. He was over in Perth in the UK recently. I think there was a few people that got excited when he said that he was heading to Perth. But he did a park run over in Scotland on the weekend, running a 4.96 kilometre PB, running a sub 16. So there was a few call outs actually. As soon as he posted that Strava activity, we had a few call outs from a number of Perth listeners. And so, yeah, it's very funny that no matter how far away from us you are, you will always be found.
Excellent. And finally, I think the last Weapon of Warp for this week is my coach, Tina Ingraham. So look, unlike some people who try and fundraise big, lofty targets and fall quite short on that, unlike them, Tina, however, has signed up for the HBF Run for a Reason, has decided to run a half marathon, and has decided to run for a reason in fundraising for the motor neuron disease WA. And that's a charity that's close to her heart because, as some of the listeners may know, Tina's husband, Todd, a successful WA runner in his own right, was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, and within the space of 12 months has gone from running daily to being wheelchair bound. The charity looks to support West Australians living with motor neuron disease, as well as their carers and families, for a disease that has no treatment and no cure. So Tina had originally set a modest fundraising goal of $1,000, but as the days went on, she's had to push those targets upwards, and setting it to $21,000 for the 21 Ks in which she was going to run at HBF. As of today, she's now surpassed that target with over $22,000 raised. So I think the latest goal, I was chatting to her this afternoon, her latest goal now is hopefully raising 42 Ks. And her plan now is not only running HBF in the half, but then running the distance in reverse to do a marathon. So if she achieves that goal, which, there's still 3 months until HBF, I have no doubt she's going to raise 42 Ks, and it'll be great to see her not only run the half, but then run back to the start line through the tunnel while the tunnel's still open there. So look, what we'll do is we'll chuck a link to the donations page in the show notes, and it'll be good to see Tina run a marathon at HBF, the unofficial marathon distance, and it'd be good to see it.
Yeah, definitely. And I wonder if she's going to be doing it solo, or if she'll kind of bring a pack with her, potentially to build the hype a little bit and it'd be awesome. Yeah, like you say, it'd be awesome to see someone running the course in reverse while other people are still running it. So yeah, definitely something you don't see every day.
Either legally or illegally, I'm not too sure at this stage, but yeah, it would be good to see that in action and see her raise money for a charity that is really close to her and her family there.
Definitely.
That's it for us in this week's records. Our Instagram is at WA Running Pod. Our email is warunningpodcast@gmail.com. Our Strava group is Warp. Hope everyone has a great week in running, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.